There are many people within the combat sports realm who doubt the talents of YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul. With wins over other social personalities, a former NBA player, and 2 well-aged MMA stars, he has many detractors that believe that he has been a protected athlete with little real boxing skills. However, the 25-year-old does also have supporters within the boxing community. Who are they? Well, let's take a look. First up, we have Oscar De La Hoya. 6th Division World Champion Oscar De La Hoya is a true believer in the boxing ability of social media star Jake Paul. He even believes Jake can become a world champion if he continues on his professional run. De La Hoya is reported to have said about the controversial YouTuber that he is the real deal. He further clarified his statement by saying that Jake had only had 4 or 5 fights, and despite that, he is taking it seriously, and that is what makes him the real deal. He continued after this by stating that he dares anyone who has experience in boxing or MMA to call Jake out because he has the capability to beat a lot of good champions, and maybe even some of the great ones. He reiterated that Jake is truly onto something because he's taking it seriously and not considering it just a one-off or a two-off thing. Rather, he wants to be a world champion, and there's no real way out of that other than fighting the very best, and that is exactly what Jake is doing, and he's doing it the right way. De La Hoya even commented on Jake's social media history and how it could be helpful rather than stating it like the boxer's crutch as people normally have done. He said that Jake is on his way to becoming a contender for a world champion, and if he keeps it up, along with his already huge social media following of over 19 million followers, it would be wonderful for the sport itself. He called out anyone who makes a joke out of the YouTuber's following by saying that everyone wants that kind of following, and the way Jake is going with it is great for him and great for boxing. The 11 world title holder in boxing concluded that he hopes that he does become a world champion. With that kind of support from a legend of the sport, Jake Paul can only be holding his head up high in the face of critics right now. Next is Mike Tyson. Yes, one of the most notable names in all of boxing has also lent support to Jake Paul. Well, it was not exactly due to Jake's fighting merit, but rather Tyson spoke of his merit to the sport at the post-fight press conference of his 2020 exhibition fight with Roy Jones Jr. when he was asked about Jake's impact on the sport. Tyson replied, saying that boxing had been a dying sport in the face of the UFC, which was gaining popularity. He continued that it was the YouTube boxers who were bringing it back. Well, it may not be a support for his skill per se, but if the youngest heavyweight boxing champion in the world is vouching for your success, that is at the very least flex-worthy. And now we have Khabib Nurmagomedov, another surprise name on the list for sure. The longest reigning lightweight champion in the UFC offered Jake a spot in his MMA promotion company, Eagle Fighting Championship, after Paul was snubbed by Dana White for a fight in the famed UFC. Now, whether Khabib believes in the skill of Jake Paul or in the clout he brings to his fights, it is clear that the UFC champion sees potential in Paul, which can only mean good things for the budding boxer. Next on the list is Francis Ngannou. Jake has also garnered the support of another heavyweight UFC champion in Ngannou, whose support was made apparent after the YouTube boxer went after the UFC president over pay-per-view price, fighter pay, as well as providing healthcare for fighters, and even investing into the UFC's parent company to try and make his mark. Ngannou spoke of Jake's stance in an interview posted on YouTube in February of 2022, where the Cameroonian fighter explained that he follows all the stuff and is aware of the happenings in the UFC and what Jake is advocating for. He confessed that Jake has his own way of communicating, which is different from his own, but keeping that aside, he is 100% with him for what he says. The heavyweight king clarifies after this that when Jake claimed for fighter healthcare, he is 100% down with that. He continues that when Jake claims for a fighter pay increase, he is 1000% down for that. Ngannou concluded his stance after saying that the fighters are not protected and that they are out there on their own with nobody supporting them when it comes to their physical well-being. He stated that they are putting their bodies on the line for it all, and the least that they deserve is healthcare. He reiterated that he is 1000% down for that. Now, with whatever you advocate for, having a figure such as Francis Ngannou in your corner is, to say the least, a menacing presence for your opponent. Ngannou's management has even been in touch with Jake's representatives previously, reporting negotiating the possibility for a fight, which irked the UFC administration, who have refused Jake's pleas for a fight card. While Ngannou stated that he was unaware of this communication by his management, it seems that the champion's camp does not hold any hostility to Jake Paul, and even is in support of him as a potential fighter in the UFC. How did Jake Paul's boxing career begin? These athletes hold a high opinion of Jake Paul. Because of that, you may be forgiven for thinking that the YouTuber turned boxer has a greater portfolio in fighting than he actually may. So to make sure we are all on the same page, let's delve into the boxing career of Jake Paul, and then you can make a judgment on whether the 25-year-old holds potential or not. It all started in the February of 2018 with a slew of YouTubers trash-talking one another. Logan, Jake Paul's older brother, was involved, and they agreed to compete against 2 other YouTube star brothers, KSI and his younger brother Deji. Jake won by a technical knockout in the 5th round after starting began unloading on him against the ropes. Following this, Paul's profile began to rise, and by January of 2020, he had booked his second fight against YouTuber Gib. Paul and Gib fought as the co-feature on the Demetrius Andrade-Luke Keeler Championship card, marking Paul's professional boxing debut. This one, however, did not last nearly as long as Paul's first fight. Wearing gold trunks, he knocked Gib out via TKO at the 2:15 in the first round. It was becoming evident that Jake Paul's powers were no laughing matter. Despite his beginnings as a YouTuber, this guy was on his way to becoming a legitimate fighter. Following this, Paul began a rigorous training regimen in order to perfect his boxing technique. However, while training with emerging lightweight prodigy Ryan Garcia in June of 2020, he bit off more than he could chew. The two participated in a popular internet craze known as the Body Shot Challenge. Garcia delivered a powerful left to Paul, knocking him out and sending him to the hospital. There were rumors that Paul and Garcia were feuding, but Garcia rejected these claims. Now let's dive into the career-defining fights. Paul's third fight came in July of 2020, and this was the one that cemented his reputation. On the undercard of the much-anticipated battle between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., he faced former NBA player Nate Robinson, the dunk contest legend. The event was delayed from August to late November, which made fans impatient, but it was well worth the wait, or at least the Paul Robinson battle was. At 1:24 of the second round, Paul totally devastated Robinson, sending him to the canvas, putting him to sleep, and creating one of the most unforgettable boxing moments in recent history. Paul was being challenged left and right after the Robinson bout. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. One of those challenges came from MMA great Ben Askren, the former Bellator and ONE champion. Askren was announced as Paul's next opponent in a fight scheduled for April of 2021 and December of 2020. Despite his age of 36, many people predicted that Askren would win. Dana White, the UFC's president, even stated that he'd bet $1 million on Askren. Paul, certain of his success, gladly accepted the bet. As they fought in Atlanta, his confidence proved to be well-founded. Paul easily won by TKO in the first round, knocking Askren onto his back and then forcing him into a dizzy spell. Paul improved to a 3-0 as a pro and defeated his first actual legitimate opponent. The fight reportedly drew 1.5 million pay-per-view purchases, resulting in a massive reward for Paul, $75 million. Despite the fact that his purse fight was less than $1 million, the YouTuber has earned it big time as a result of his switch to boxing. Nonetheless, he recently stated that he is fighting not for money, but because he enjoys it. With that attitude, it looks like Jake Paul is here to stay. And that's a wrap for this video. So, do you think Jake Paul has potential, or do you think he's in it for the clout? Do let us know in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos just like this. See you in the next one.